Hey everyone, happy Monday. I am going to paint today this bouquet that my mother gave to my husband and me for our anniversary. So here is the bouquet and it's just stunning. I love everything about it, and so I thought before it dies, I wanted to paint a picture of it. And I almost always, when I get bouquets from my family, my husband, my kids, I try to sketch them in my sketchbooks. I just love looking back through the years and revisiting that. So that's what we're doing today. So here's my regular palette. It's mostly Daniel Smith colors with some Shin Han gouache mixed in for the lilac and the hydrangea blue. I just thought that it's kind of a perfect color for the flower. Those two are perfect colors for what I'm painting. So I'm adding the gouache integrated right into my watercolor palette. And I am starting out with my etcher brush. It's a round brush. I want to say it's a size 12. And I'm starting with the Shin Han Lilac gouache. And I just love this color. It really captures the beauty of I don't know if they look like chrysanthemums. They may be dahlias. They look like a dahlia and a chrysanthemum. I'd say they're probably dahlias this time of year, but there are lots and lots of petals. And I, in general, I'm just starting to paint these super duper duper petaled flowers, and they can be very difficult. I think one thing that you want to remember is you try to make all your petals go towards the same center. Find your center of the flower, which is about 3/4 of the way down and in the middle of this flower, and make sure all the petals that you add are pointing in that direction. There are some other tips. Sorry, my dogs are going to walk around. They have been walking around grunting and groaning, so you're going to hear various dog noises while I'm painting. Quiet, Winston. It's like the minute I turn the camera on, my dogs want to talk and also snore. One of them's going to sleep right now, ready to snore. So anyways, started out with this lilac, and I'm coming in with a darker magenta to add into the center to kind of give it a little bit of definition. There are a million different ways to paint these flowers. And I'll show you a few different ways there. I've also gone in where I've gone real dark and then gone in and removed paint with a drier brush, and that's kind of a nice effect. But I kind of felt like these, I just wanted to let loose and use my number 11 brush and just paint, not do a lot of reverse taking paint off today, if that makes any sense at all. So we were delighted to come home from vacation, our 2 days in Atlantic City, and find my mom had given me these flowers. And it's an interesting bouquet in that it's a one-sided bouquet. The one side is flat, and the back side you really don't want to look at, but you've got these tall, beautiful flowers in the back, and then it comes down shorter and shorter in the front. I took a floral class once years ago with my daughter, and we created a few of these displays. They're very interesting to look at, and they're pretty easy to do. I just never design this type of a bouquet when I'm picking flowers from my own yard. So I thought I'd capture this in a painting. So now I'm coming back in with not the lilac, a little bit of the lilac, I'm sorry, mixed with a little blue. And then I'm mixing it right into the magenta. I like to, you don't want to go when you're painting flowers and do all the same color. And I mean, that's fine when you're laying in watercolors an initial shape, and then you're going back in with dark, which is kind of the fun thing about watercolors. But I very much try to vary every second or third time you dip your brush. You want to mix up your color a little bit. Even if you're making it close to what you're painting with, it just adds so much more variety to what you're painting. So I struggled a little bit with these, but they were awful fun. Now I'm going to put in the warm shadowed center. I just am putzing around trying to put it in where the empty white space is in the middle. And I do like the way these dried and how they turned out. I was happy with the overall shape. They're definitely a flower that I want to work on in the future, especially with fall coming up. And I love chrysanthemums, and I do find them to be one of the more difficult flowers to paint. Years ago, when I took a painting class, my teacher said, what do you want to paint next time? Because we would bring our own setups in. And I said, I want to paint flowers. And he said, well, have you ever painted flowers before? And I said, no. And he said, a tip for you is to, if you're going to the florist to pick out flowers, pick one with the least amount of petals possible, which I thought, well, that's not very much faith in your student's artistic abilities, but he was right. When you're first starting out, it is a little bit easier to pick a 5-petal flower, or something like a columbine, or not even a daisy. Daisies can be very difficult. Some of the cute little 5-petal flowers are really good to start with. And I actually have a video coming up with some that I picked from my front yard, and that's coming out at the end of the week. So it is much easier to start with flowers that are less intense with their petals. But I'm actually happy with the way these are turning out. They are similar enough to what I'm painting, and I love the color combinations. I don't know why, but in summer, purple really strikes me. I use a lot of purple in the summertime, purples and blues, that I don't necessarily, well, I guess I do use them in the winter when I do winter scenes. So again, I'm just going back in, darkening up the center to, you know, give the flower some shape so it doesn't just look like a big Maryland blue crab in purple, which is what it kind of looks like right now. And sometimes with watercolor, you let it sit and you move on and come back. There are things like when you're doing wet on wet, you want to do that all at once because obviously you're not going to get the color blends that you want. But when I find that I'm fiddling around a lot with something and I'm not specifically using wet on wet, I find that it's sometimes good to move on to something else and come back, look at it with fresh eyes. So this is it for the big purple, we'll call them dahlias, big purple dahlias. They're a lot of fun. I mean, I don't want to intimidate you by saying, ooh, don't try a flower with a bunch of petals. It's just frustrating when you're starting out. Now I'm going to come back in here with, this one ran quite a bit and is looking much more watered down. So I'm coming back in with some lilac, which is a much lighter purple. And I really don't want to destroy this flower, so I am very delicately trying to place these and take a second to look at it. And again, make sure they're all going towards the center of your flower where the stem meets. And I want to leave that deep dark center in there to give it the depth there in the middle and kind of give it some shape there. You know, just kind of playing back and forth with the different colors. And one thing I find that I do as I'm watching myself paint is I go over the lighter colors in the back, and I have to force myself to go maybe a little bit next to them and let some of these more transparent areas show through. It just looks so much better when I actively make myself do that. And now I'm coming in with some lighter purple lilac over the top of my dark base. And I know watercolor, you don't work dark to light, you work light to dark. But when I add gouache, I get a little confused, because gouache and acrylic, you can go dark to light, or you can actually layer gouache a lot easier. If you're not planning on re-wetting it, you can layer gouache dark to light. And so you'll notice I'm not following all the rules of watercolor here. It's a combination of watercolor and gouache. But I'm really happy with the way these purples are playing together in this flower. I am not unhappy with it. And I'm loving the shape of it and the movement. And I wanted to do these first because these are the real focal flowers of this bouquet. So I wanted to get the things that are most eye-catching in there first. I don't always do that. Sometimes I work back to front and put the fillers in first, but this one I just wanted to get in there and get those beautiful purple flowers captured. And now there are a bunch of little very dark magenta spray roses that are in my bouquet. And if I can, I'm going to try to show a picture-in-picture in the corner of the bouquet while I'm doing this. I've not figured out how to do that yet. So, yeah, I'm going to have to take some time to do that so that you can see the reference bouquet that I'm working from. It sometimes is helpful. At least I find it helpful when I watch other tutorials. So I'm going in with just the big shapes of the spray roses, getting those laid in there. And then mixing up a nice kind of a gray blue for these beautiful, I don't know if they're columbines, what kind of flowers these are, but they're gorgeous. And they're less petals. They're the easier five petal flowers. Watch me do 6 or 7, but pretty much 5. There we go. With a nice dark center. So these two, I've seen tutorials on doing these a million different ways. You can start in the middle with dots of paint and drag them out. I have come to enjoy doing them best loose with a round brush, because I don't want them uniform. And I have a harder time when I do the 5 dots of paint in the middle and drag them out, which anyone who's watched any tutorials will know what I'm talking about. And they're fun to do, but I find that I end up with the exact same shape flower when I do those. And I don't like that. I prefer to kind of freehand it. And now I'm putting more roses in. Because the colors are pretty similar, or I'm in my reds, blues, and purples. I don't mind working back and forth so much color-wise. Sometimes I'll try to do, all the purple flowers and then put all my red spray roses in. But I don't mind if there's a little pigment left on the brush and it goes into whatever I'm doing next. Again, it kind of adds a nice adds a little uniformity to the painting. And some sideways little buds. And with this, because I had this bouquet, I followed it when I'm painting my bouquets that I got as gifts. I try to maintain the original integrity of the bouquet by painting it pretty exactly as I see it. If I weren't doing one of my bouquet paintings, I would move things around a little bit or add things here or there. But because I want to remember exactly what this bouquet looked like, it is more putting things where I see them rather than compositionally moving things where I think they would maybe look better. My husband got me one of those fountains from Costco, so I don't know if you can hear it in the background. It's in the other room. I actually moved into this room so you couldn't hear it. It's a beautiful sound when you're not recording. Now I'm just the tips, touching the tips of these columbine flowers with a little bit of dark blue. Let them dry for a little bit. Sometimes when I go in too quickly, they end up running weirdly and looking goofy, so I try to give it a little time before I drop in my second color. That's been a hard lesson in watercolor. And sometimes I just drop way too much in. Should probably pull some of that out of there. Just clean my brush and dry it off and tap it to pull some pigment out. And I like to go in front of the darker, even though it's not completely dry. I will add some detail work in the middle, like the lighter petals in front there with the darker on that columbine or side of a columbine. This blue is a little strong. Sometimes you get partway through a painting and you go, oh, that's a little strong. And I know that watercolor dries lighter, but sometimes when you get a big glob like that, I end up like wiping some of it off at the end. Sometimes it doesn't dry as lightly as you'd like. So use your colors and really put some miles on them so that you know how light they dry. It's just a good idea when you're learning something. Try to maybe start with a limited palette, work with 7 or 8 colors, and learn what they do and how light they dry and how they move. Watercolors are this whole different animal compared to oil paints, which I think are pretty steadfast, I guess. Oil paints are pretty. Also, with any painting, it's good to start out with a more limited palette. You also learn how to blend color a little bit better than if you just go out and buy every color purely out of the tube, and not learning how to mix these different colors. That's a lot of the beauty in watercolor, I feel, is blends of these different colors and the way they blend on their own on the paper. You can't really control it, which is you always end up getting something very unique when you're done with watercolor. So we're going to do these beautiful stalks of the light purple columbine, and some of them are a little bit darker purple. I prefer to add the stems towards the end. Sometimes if I want the color to blend into my flower, I will put the stems in because it adds a nice color to the flower. On these, I don't want it to do that. So and there. So I think what we're gonna do next is mix up a little bit of yellow green. There are white flowers on either side of this bouquet that I just love. They're gorgeous. And it's impossible, obviously, to paint white flowers on white paper. And the white flowers are not truly white. If you hold them next to a sheet of paper, there's always, they don't match. They're not totally devoid of color. And I find that either a yellow green or a yellow green with some orange in it tends to work very well for most white flowers. Sometimes when I'm doing daisies, I will use a bluish purple, but these have real pretty yellowy green centers. And so I'm going with a really, really watery version of yellow green. It does dry lighter, and I'm going a little bit darker so that you can see it, but I am happy with the way it ended up looking, because these are actually, I'm not trying to depict these as white, they're a pale, pale, pale yellow. So sometimes I think with my hand when I'm painting, even though I know where I'm supposed to place something, I think end up throwing this purple flower in here first rather than putting the pale yellow flower behind it. But it does tuck in behind there. All right, so I'm gonna speed it up here a little bit because I've got some downtime in here that is kind of weird as I was recording, so it's easier to speed it up and talk through this. I am adding a darker green. This is a situation where I did want to add the stems to run into the yellow flowers because it's got that tint at the bottom of the flower and it just makes them look so beautiful. So I'm putting in the stem while these are wet rather than like the ones on the right where it's dry, where I let the flowers dry so that it doesn't bleed into that. And we're gonna do some more pale yellow flowers at the bottom. They're just so pretty in this bouquet. And it's really, again, if you look at the top part of the painting, you don't want everything shaped the same. I can't stress it enough. Flowers face in different directions, especially ones that are sharing the same stalk. They are not all facing towards you. So you want to move your hand around and move the flower, the direction of the flower, facing left, facing right. And now I'm gonna go in. There were some darker, smaller clumps of flowers at the top. And then we're coming in with a darker stem that goes up here. Even though I already got some of the green going into the flowers, we're going to come up with yet even more pigment. And I'm touching some of the flowers, but I'm trying not to go into all of the flowers because they're still very wet and it can turn some of them really dark blue. But it's nice to have them mix in with some of these flowers and add some little greenery coming out. Those are fun. I really enjoy. I love delphiniums and these long stemmed flowers that have a lot of ruffly, pretty petals on them. And then there's another one in the middle on the left here. I'm going to go in and I love the greenery that comes out of the top of these too. It's funny, each flower has such different characteristics. my goodness, I've got a couple of super long videos. If you're still with me, probably a handful of people. Um, I am working on, I'm doing some long form videos. I am going to start having download lessons that are longer form for people that, YouTube is more, I find, sharing shorter snippets of lessons. I seem to have get a lot more shares and get a lot more, and I mean, it's all about that on YouTube, because if, they've got to share your video on the algorithm so that you can continue, I am an affiliate partner, which is exciting, but it seems like the artists that I follow, their long content video are either on Patreon, or they have other areas where they do their long form paintings. So I'm putting some long form paintings like this up because I enjoy it, but I know that my viewership goes down substantially when I do the longer form, not the short, quick, this is how you do this flower, this is how you do that. So I'm really, I've only been at this a few months. I'm trying to find a good balance of what goes on my YouTube channel, and I started a Facebook where I've got some stuff on a group on Facebook, and I want to start doing challenges over there. But it's interesting. I'm loving every minute of it, and what I love most is finding friends all over the world that love painting as much as I do. And so I not everything that I share is interesting to all of my followers, but I think that a diversity of things that I share is important. I mean, if, some people like painting flowers, some people hate painting flowers, they like painting landscapes. I like painting almost everything. And so I'm really trying to hone in on what my viewers want to see. And so you'll see some more long form videos like this coming out. And you'll also see some short form videos. And I'm, going to do some more landscapes. And I had started a cookbook, and I want to do a watercolor cookbook for the holidays. And so I'm just kind of throwing everything out there. I would love to hear, I've been trying to figure out how to do a poll on YouTube asking what people like to see painted, because I can do that, and I don't know how. And so if you want to drop in the comments things that you love to see painted, whether it's tutorials, whether it's, fun stuff like Sarah Burns does beautiful trips through Scotland where she lives. There are so many amazing painters on YouTube that I follow myself that I just love their stuff, but obviously you want to do your own unique thing. So if you are interested in anything in particular, drop it in the comments. I'm going to get back to talking about the painting a little bit, and then I think I might switch to music, because this is a very long video, and it's not going to be one of my possible Patreon tutorials. It's just me working on presentation of long form content for people who like to paint. Like I said, I could watch almost anybody paint almost anything for an indefinite amount of time. I know there are other people like me out there. I know there's a group of painters that they live, eat, and breathe paint. And I don't know about you, but for me, it is how I relax and how I forget about just everything that's bothering me. It's being in the zone. I love being in the zone, and I would probably sit and paint 10 hours a day if I could, but I can't. So this has been fun, and I want to thank anybody again who's still listening to this very long video and enjoying this, because I just enjoy the heck out of it, and I hope that there are things that you can learn from watching my channel. I always say when I go to take a class anywhere, take an online class or go to a class, if I can learn one thing from each video that I watch, which I generally do, then I've succeeded. Then it's been a good use of my time to learn one thing that I didn't know. And I just think, I mean, every teacher that I've ever taken painting from has said, I'm a student, I'm a lifetime student. I think that even people who teach painting are forever students. They forever want to learn new things and new techniques and new ways to use excuse me, new ways to use brushes or new colors. And so I don't know, the whole thing's fascinating to me. But I do want to thank you for watching me work and for joining me and hopefully learning something that you can take away and say, oh, wow, I tried those yellow-green flowers. And there's my dog chiming in with what he learned. So it's, you know, that's my little stream of consciousness there. Now I think I'm going to put on some music and hope you enjoy this. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you as a follower. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.